Okay, clearly you clicked on the video overview for the Math 120 guide. So what I want to do is click on the Math 120 guide, and I just want to go through it briefly. I mean, I'm not going to read the entire guide to you. It would take days, really would. So let me click on this over here, and what happens is it's going to open up a Dropbox. Now, if you're not a member of Dropbox, it's going to ask you to join. You can just simply say no, thank you. Now, what I'm going to claim over here is what you want to do is you want to download this document by clicking this link over here. So I'm going to download it. And if your computers are properly configured, what's going to happen is it will download the document, and this is the Math 120 document, and it's a long document. It's 560 pages long. And this document pertains to material that's being taught at Essex County College in Calculus 1. Right? I don't want to go through the whole document with you, but I do want to go through, the table of contents a little bit. So there's a diagnostic review over here, but I want to get to the first topic in Math 121. And so I would click on this over here, and what I see is there's going to be lecture material. Now, granted, it may be different than your lecture material, but it's typical introduction to calculus, tangents and secants. What do? I basically give a lecture on this over here. And if you notice on the side, there's little tiny things like a TV screen. You can click on these things over here, and there's a mini lecture pertaining to what's on this immediately to the left over here. Now, again, I would talk through this. This is a typical type of introduction to calculus where we talk about secant lines and tangents. And the reason for these documents over here is if students have possession of these documents, they have a quality picture and a quality example to follow. All right, so I'm going to claim I go through this. I talk about it. Right now, then I talk about another little example. And again, on the side, here's a little tiny video of me talking through that. All right, so again, that's for students that need to get that additional support or teachers that need that additional support. I also put down a blue area, and the blue area is basically, a summary of what I say in lecture. It's the answer to the question. Again, I want to point out this is the question example, and this would be the stuff I talk through in lecture material, right? So in the blue area, it's really what we'd like students to be able to do at some point, all right? And certainly the more articulate they are, the better it is for them, all right? So I go to, example after example, and again, little tiny side videos on the side, example after example, basically teaching the material as it pertains to the examples. Right now, you notice the lecture has examples in it, right? Have examples in it. But what I do after, going to lecture material, which may take time to get through it, as you start moving up in the numbers in Essex County College, the lectures get longer. However, students still need to see multiple examples. That's how most of our students are learning, by seeing example. All right. So what do? I go to example. The examples that I go through also at the side have little videos of mini lectures of me talking about this example. Let me just click on this one over here, and this pertains to problem number 1 in section 3.2 of the notes. A web browser is going to open up, and then there's going to be a video over here that's only 2 minutes long, me working through that example. It takes 2 minutes to get through the example, not long. Now, someone says, do students need to watch those things? No. But what happens to some of our students during lectures, they zone out. They don't know what happened. So what they may have to do at some point in the future is go back and re-listen to that particular problem because they can't remember it being presented in class. All right? So I go through a series of problems, and these are done in class. And then what happens is students are expected to try on their own. So what I do is I come up with a series of questions for them to do on their own. Now, in the questions, you're going to notice over here, there's a question, what's in the blue area? The work. Now, I want to warn people about the video on the side. The video on the side is basically going to warn students, if you can't do this example, it's going to warn the student that they need to study the material before they try the examples. That's what they need to do. They need to study the material for doing that. All right? So there's going to be a series of examples over here that students do for homework. And yes, there's answers there for them to self-check or self-assess. Yeah, it's a lot of work to get through the calculus. And then you don't have to get through all that homework. It's long. I realize that. It's much longer than the examples we did in class. I want to point this out. Not everyone uses the same web assigns that I do, but if you don't, you know what? Tell students when they get to 3.4, tell them what your assignment is in the web assign, all right? Related Sage code. This is very important, by the way. You're at Math 121 now. Both faculty and students should be very comfortable with the computer algebra system. And what I do over there is I put some Sage code down over here. And again, we're trying to get students, not that it's required, but we're trying to get students used to using a computer algebra system. And I go through some work over here with respect to that. There's some online videos. What's that about? Well, you know what? I publish a lecture. Do students need to watch that? No. However, if a student spaces out during your lectures, you know what? This might help them learn the material. I also have a lecture over here on the examples. This is me working through the examples. I have a lecture over here, me working the Sage material. And again, you may want to rely upon these things. If you're not familiar with Sage, just tell students, hey, watch that video. Maybe you'll be able to catch on with what he's saying in the video. I want to point out about the homework, though. I'm going to click on it. I'll tell you what happens. A YouTube video is going to open up. And in the YouTube video, certainly you can play the video, but you can also scrub the video. For example, I just scrubbed the video over there, click play, somewhere in the middle of it, and they're on problem 5 now. Now, by the way, when I say on problem number 5, maybe you don't need help with number 5. Maybe you need help with another problem. You scroll to that problem. That's all you have to do. Now, I'm gonna pause the video. You can play around with the sound, make it loud or make it whatever. It's 53 minutes long. It takes me 53 minutes to get through the homework. And no, I'm not rushing it. I'm doing it as if I were a student and understood the material. There's also on settings, I just want to go through this briefly, playback speed. You can speed it up, slow it down, whatever you want to do. You can also change the quality of it. Someone says, why would I change quality? If you have a bad internet connection, play it at 144p. If your internet connection is fast though, play at the highest quality you can get. Some of my videos go up to 1440p, but for the most part, they're all legible. Like you can see that. Like over here, you can definitely see this on your screen. You can also blow it up and play it full screen. All right, let me shrink it down and let me go back to the PDF notes. My claim is this though, every section of the notes is going to look the same. What does that mean? There'll be lectures. In the lectures, you'll see little tiny mini lectures. All right, bottom line, lecture, 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 some examples, then me working more examples at the board. After I get through those examples, what do I do next? I let them work on problems at home. That's called homework. Students are expected to do homework at home. That is study. Students are putting a lot of time into their study. They get through the homework. Yeah, I know it's work. People get through it. I got through it. You got through it. Everyone should be able to get through it. Now, of course, after they get through the homework, there's also some information about, that optional material that we're talking about, the Sage stuff. And what's Sage? Sage is a computer algebra system, but every section of my notes will address the use of a computer algebra system as it relates to the material that's being taught. What else are you going to see in the notes? You'll see links to not only the lectures, the examples, homework, and Sage. And these are YouTube videos. They don't need to be watched, but they can be watched if they're helpful. Thank you so much for paying attention.